thank you everyone for joining us today. So before we jump into the GCCG, I would like to briefly introduce you to BGCI and the SEABG network, just a couple of minutes. So about BGCI, Botanic Gardens Conservation International, we are a non-profit UK charity. We were established in 1987. We are a global membership organization. We link botanic gardens for plant conservation. And so far, we have about 950 members worldwide. We are a very small organization. We have about 40 people working in BGCI in UK office and also globally. So our work streams, we do a lot of plant conservation activities through in situ and ex situ conservation, mostly practical conservation projects which focuses on trees. And mostly our funders are like UK government, the Darwin Initiative, Foundation Franklinia, or the MAS-PGE. So we write funding with our partners, local partners, and when we get the grant, we will do the practical tree conservation. That's one of our major work. Other than that, we also organize capacity building, training workshops. We have exchanges. We also have a big resource, standards and tools like the garden search, where you can search on gardens all over the globe, and also plant search. You can search on plants in ex situ collections. We do a lot of information dissemination through conferences, congresses, and also newsletters like Cultivate from BGCI. We also have regional newsletters. So coming to our regional work, we are a global network. We have regional networks as well, the Caribbean network, the Latin American network. Right now, this is GCCD TechTalk is presented to you via the Southeast Asian Botanic Gardens Network. So a little bit on the Southeast Asian Botanic Gardens Network. Me, Grita Arumugam, together with David Plas, who's working remotely from Philippines, and I'm from Malaysia. So we are coordinating this Southeast Asia Botanic Gardens Network. This network comprises of botanical organization in Southeast Asian countries. So we have about 80 members so far. We do this kind of tech talks. Sometimes we have conferences. We have the IPSN biosecurity group, plant biosecurity group. So we do a lot of events and workshops to bring together the botanic organization in Southeast Asia, so we can share, link with each other, and also benefit to work on plant conservation. So that is us. I hope you enjoy the TechTalk later on the GCC Dipterocarps. Thank you. Over to you, David.
Okay, so this is our Tech Talk, Dipterocarps and more, an intro to the Global Conservation Consortia. Next slide, please. Our first speaker for today will be Dylan Fuller. Dylan is based at BGCI's headquarters in London, where he helps coordinate the GCC Secretariat, helping to grow the community of GCCs to support delivery of its mission. He holds an MSc in Botany and Conservation Biology, and his own research and fieldwork has focused on the native palms of Fiji and the flora of Hawaii. Prior to joining BGCI, he held roles at the Natural History Museum in London, the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., and he also previously worked in the commercial tech sector for companies including Microsoft and eBay. Without further ado, Dylan, please take it away.
Yeah, hi, can everyone hear me okay? It's Dylan here in London. So I'm going to now try and share my screen. Can you see that slide?
Yes.
Okay. Is it in? Yeah, there it goes. Sharing mode. So I'm going to do an introduction to the Global Conservation Consortia at a global level, how the program works, and talk about some of our partners around the world before handing it over to the team in Singapore and China to talk specifically about what's going on with Dipterocarps. But I thought the first thing I would do is actually do a little icebreaker. If people are happy with that. I know, apologies about the accent. I've lived all over the place, but hopefully you can hear me. And I think an icebreaker is kind of a fun thing to do. It's late in the day there. for a lot of you, and it's quite early for me. So can you see the screen now where it says welcome icebreaker? So we're going to use Mentimeter. So in a second, there'll be a slide. So I'll go to the second slide. So Mentimeter, if you're not familiar with it, you can join on this URL and then enter that code, or you can click on the QR code. So maybe everybody take a minute. You can use your phones. Or you can open up a second browser window if that's convenient for people, because we're just going to ask a few questions, and it'll be 3 questions. Nothing too hard. There's no tests. This will just be a bit of fun. So hopefully people are seeing that okay. So it's menti, menti.com. And then if you use the code, it's 42272184, or jump on that QR code. Each of these slides should continue to have the joining information. So hopefully everybody can see that slide. For some reason, Zoom is not letting me see the slides and my face. So the first one is, where do you live, or where are you based, or where are you joining this Zoom call from? Take your pick. It's not the best map, but just do your best in terms of finding your location. At least we'll know the majority of the regions of where people are coming from. And hopefully the colors have come through okay. I'm expecting, like we were saying before, be interesting to see how many of the countries in Southeast and wider Asian region that we have included today. So thank you for doing that question. And then the second question is, how are you feeling today? So I'm going with the 4 H's. And it says you should be able to slide there and pick how happy you are, how hopeful you are, helpful, and hungry. Hopefully most people aren't hungry. So it's either, do you strongly agree or strongly disagree with how you're feeling today? Just to kind of get a mood for the room. I'm feeling quite happy today, but I've had 2 coffees, so that's kind of getting me going. And then the last is a free form question. So when you think of Dipterocarps, what topic comes to mind? Just one word, please. And this will create a word cloud. No pressure here. It could just be tree, or whatever comes to mind. But thank you for participating. Yeah, beautiful seeds. Yep, the wings. I mean, I'll ask the experts later. I mean, does anyone know the record of how far a Dipterocarp seed can travel in the air before hitting the ground? It's like helicopter seeds. Yeah, wings is definitely winning. So thank you everybody for taking part. And now I'm gonna stop sharing that and come back to the screen. And now I'm gonna go back to my main presentation and actually get to some more of the content of my presentation. So a little bit about the Global Conservation Consortia. So our mission, so this is the mission of the whole program, is to accelerate effective conservation of global plant diversity. It's a pretty lofty goal. A little bit about how we're organized. So BGCI acts effectively as the secretariat for the global program. Each individual GCC has a lead gardener institution that partners with BGCI. And those are mostly, for the most part, each GCC is led around a taxonomic group. So for example, the Dipterocarps that we're talking about today, but we have other ones: conifers, oaks, magnolia. I'll go through the full list in a few minutes. And we help coordinate the programs, which is really to mobilize groups of institutions, experts, cross-sector partners, and local resources to work collaboratively to implement conservation programs for priority threatened species. So we have started with some of the most threatened tree species in the world. A lot of the ones we've launched with, the program is just about 5 years old, so we're just getting ready to put together our next 5-year strategy. We've started with focusing on recalcitrant trees, so trees that are where it's not very easy to seed bank, so you need to be quite active in your conservation programs. And the way we've organized each GCC allows us to work with different types of partners. So it's not just botanic gardens, although that's how we start in the garden and then we move out. We can work with local forestry organizations, local community groups, other conservation groups, government policymakers. We can even have certain individuals who work as species stewards on the ground across the world. And the primary objectives is in situ and ex situ conservation, and then disseminating out that species recovery knowledge. And I think it's really important that we've found that ex situ and in situ really complement each other. So we're very action oriented, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. If you aren't familiar with it, there's the Global Strategy for Plant Conservation, which is a framework that we align with. This was formally adopted at the last CBD Convention on Biological Diversity last year. So that's a framework that we kind of plug into. So if you're not familiar with that, you can find more information about that on our website or just search Global Strategy for Plant Conservation. And so we're aligning our objectives with that document. Hopefully you can see a third slide that says our focus is on action. So really we talk about, I call it sort of a flywheel. Obviously you have to do planning and prioritization. And I kind of think of that as the groundwork that you have to put in place before you can actually do conservation. So you've got to have your taxonomy, you've got to have your checklists, your agreed language that you're working with your partners. You've got to do, there's red listing, but then you've got to do your planning. And then the really good work starts around action. And then the fourth sort of pillar is the monitoring. So you have to monitor how well the action is going, and then use that to feed back in to improve things continuously. And that, as you'll see when we talk about some specifics around some GCCs, that can be extending into other species that you haven't been working on or other regions, depending on the taxonomic group. So that's a framework that we use. And then a little bit more about just this slide's a bit busy, but the diagram there is showing how, and this is on our website and we'll share the slides afterwards, how we structure a GCC. So there needs to be a global lead that really takes charge and put some resources behind coordinating the effort. So in the case of Dipterocarps, we've got XTBG in China. And then generally we organize around regions. So whatever regions those trees are in. So you need to have a regional lead. So for example, oaks have four regions. They've got North America, Mesoamerica into where the oaks stop in the New World. They've got Europe and the Middle East and North Africa, and then they've got Southeast Asia. That's how they've divided themselves up regionally. And then you end up with, we talk about affiliates, but they're really just partners, and those partners can be, again, other institutions that are working on those trees or on those groups, or maybe they have special expertise just in growing, horticulture, are they forestry, down to species stewards, which can be individuals at a local level who will just work on a species of tree in their region and by region that can be part of a country or even a smaller area. We have groups in Mexico that just work in bits of Baja California where certain of the rare oaks occur. So it's a really good way to just allow us to work with different groups who actually have local expertise and feet on the ground to actually make the action happen. And just a little bit again about what I was saying. So it's about, so that we have to start by building the network. We have to identify and prioritize what we're going to do. And then it's focusing on that in situ and ex situ. But there's other things that go on within GCCs, applied research. There'll be things looking at, genetic viability. Some species we don't know how to propagate, so we've got to figure that out. You've got to build capacity. And then the other big thing that I'm really pushing now is, really communication. So awareness within the botanical community and conservation community, but also with policymakers and the general public. Through our Botanic Garden Network, we get in front of a lot of the public, and it's just a great way to educate people and get people excited. Who doesn't love trees? I think, at some point, maybe we should have a decade of the tree coming up. And then again, I've broken it out into 12, just a little more detail on the 12 objectives of the GCC. as I talked about, setting up the network, the groundwork, which is the stuff that I think a lot of people on the call or a lot of people in the botanical community are quite aware of, taxonomy, red listing, prioritization, and conservation planning. But I really talk about 3 pillars of action. So you get your X collection. So these are collections that are in botanic gardens, but they can be in city parks, they can be in urban environments, they can be in private collections. It's just where you've got growers, horticulturists actually looking after those plants, plant material, and then the in situ, that's everything from tree planting to ecological restoration, and increasingly using plant species as triggers for things like key biodiversity areas. There's a lot of, often, as we know, there's plant blindness and the plants get left out in a lot of the bigger conservation planning exercises at national and regional levels. So we're trying to push that more and more with the use of data and knowledge that we hold within our GCCs. And then there's the monitoring reporting, which then goes back into making that better, and learning and sharing that across regions, which I'll talk a little bit about sort of our coordination role at BGCI. And then I don't want to take up too much time, but there's a lot more going on in each GCC. Enhancing knowledge, raising awareness, capacity building, and then the 2 sort of pillars that kind of go together. Where are things complementary? So one organization might be really good at growing a species, another one might be really good at planting it in the wild. So how do we partner there? Some have knowledge about for species where you can well, that's one thing that BGCI is increasingly trying to work on coordinating. We currently don't have any funding grants in the GCC Global program. We have in the past, but that's something in 2026 we're hoping to relaunch. So we have 12 GCCs globally, and we have other partners talking to us about launching new ones in 2026. So the ones we currently have is Acer, or maples, conifers. I know conifers is a big one in the Southeast Asian region. Cycads, which is global. Dipterocarps, which we're talking about today. Ebonaceae, erica, which is not necessarily tree focused, but it's a very interesting group of dominant small trees and shrubs and undergrowth definitely in Southern Africa. It's a big group. We have a new one, food plants, which there'll be a separate webinar about in December if people are interested in learning more about that, led by New York Botanic Garden, but looking at wild crop relatives. We have the magnolia, Northophagus. Magnolia is another one that's big in the Southeast Asian region. Oaks, rhododendrons, and then also white beams, rowans, and service trees, which is more of a northern hemisphere group of trees. Sorbus is one of the genera. And so those are our 12. And it's just worth saying that if there's anyone on the call who's interested in some of the other taxonomic groups and getting involved, feel free to reach out to any of myself or any of our colleagues here at BGCI. And this map is actually, I need to update this map. That just shows you how busy I've been. So the purple are the countries where we have partners working in one of the GCCs. We actually have some more in Southern Africa and Eastern Africa now that I need to fill in, and a few more in Europe. So you can see we've got pretty good global spread. And it's been led taxonomically, and then the regions obviously have to match with where those species occur. And again, in the overall GCC program, we now have more than 350 partners, and these are just some logos of some of the ones that you may or may not have heard of that we're working with. And in terms of the 12 GCCs, Dipterocarps is being led out of China. We have a handful led out of Europe and a handful led out of North America. One of the things we're looking to do is have future GCCs led in other regions and biodiversity hotspots, and also looking to do twinning, potentially having a GCC with two partners, one that might be in a region where it's not the center of diversity, so it's more focused on ex situ and capacity building there, and then one that's actually more in situ in the region. just to give you a flavor of sort of how we're hoping to develop the program. And then I was going to introduce the Global Conservation for Oak and jump to a quick video and break it up that way. And then we'll come back and wrap up and do questions from me.
Hello, my name is Silvia Alvarez-Clar, and I am the Director of Global Tree Conservation at the Morton Arboretum. From Quercus robur in Europe to Quercus engelmanii in California and Quercus semicerrata in Asia, these trees support entire ecosystems, stabilizing soils, filtering water, sustaining pollinators and wildlife. But their future is uncertain. Recent global assessments reveal that more than 30% of oak species are threatened with extinction. Primary drivers include habitat destruction, overharvesting, invasive pests and diseases, and the accelerating impacts of climate change. The urgency is clear. Without focused, coordinated conservation, many oak species could vanish within our lifetimes.
Hi, my name is Karina Roscoe. I'm a research coordinator at the Morton Arboretum, and I'm also the U.S. coordinator for the Global Conservation Consortium for Oaks. The Global Conservation Consortium for Oaks, or GCCO, is a collaborative science-based initiative led by the Morton Arboretum in collaboration with Botanic Gardens Conservation International, or BGCI. Its mission is to unite stakeholders across regions and disciplines to ensure the future of threatened oaks. We work with countless partners at Botanic Gardens, universities, indigenous communities, nonprofit organizations, local and national governments, and more to support oak conservation. The GCCO operates through a proven framework: assess, plan, act. Each principle reinforces the next, guiding a cyclical and adaptive model for effective plant conservation.
Hi, I'm Kate Good. I'm the research manager in the Global Tree Conservation Program at the Morton Arboretum. Conservation begins with rigorous assessment. The GCCO works to build a comprehensive understanding of species distribution, population status, and threats. Through collaborative fieldwork and digitized herbarium records, data are compiled to support redlist assessments under IUCN standards. Species distribution modeling and gap analysis help pinpoint where conservation efforts are most needed, revealing under-collected regions, genetically underrepresented populations, and emerging threats. Yet, there are still challenges. Taxonomic uncertainties, data-deficient species, and limited access to certain regions can constrain assessments. To overcome this, GCCO supports local botanists, invests in capacity building, and leverages institutional collections globally.
Hi, I'm Amy Bird. I'm the Partnerships Manager in the Global Tree Conservation Program at the Morton Arboretum, and I also coordinate the Global Conservation Consortium for Oak. With robust assessments in place, conservation planning becomes both strategic and targeted. We developed conservation gap analyses to prioritize ex situ collections. However, collaborative planning ensures alignment between field conservation and botanical collections. The GCCO works closely with in-country partners to co-develop conservation action plans that align with regional priorities and capacity. This includes ex situ conservation strategies, such as creating genetically representative collections in living arboreta and seed banks. Planning also accounts for ecological resilience, genetic diversity, and restoration potential, ensuring collections are not only safeguarded, but also viable for reintroduction and adaptive management. Cross-institutional collaboration is key. By linking data platforms, standardizing protocols, and coordinating fieldwork, the GCCO ensures that conservation planning scales across taxa and borders.
Hello, I'm Chai-Shen Kwa, Global Tree Conservation Specialist at the Morton Arboretum. Conservation becomes real through action. From collecting acorns in the wild to restoring native oak forests, GCCO partners put plans into practice. And globally, arboretas serve as insurance collections and platform for education and outreach. GCCO works with partners to build local capacity to monitor, manage, and propagate threatened oaks. In the face of the changing climate patterns, These actions are informed by adaptive management, responding to shifting phenology, new paths, and altered ecological baselines.
By documenting and sharing this approach, the GCCO supports other consortia in refining their own conservation pathways. Join our network, either by joining the GCCO or any of the other conservation consortia. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so I will just couple more slides and then we'll hand it over for the most interesting bit, get into the dipterocarps and the winged seeds. So I just wanted to wrap up. We'll share the slides and say thank you to everybody for listening. We're looking for more partners, especially in the Southeast Asian region. To find out more, go on our website. Feel free to email me if you have any direct questions for me, and I'll hand it back over to David and Rita.
Thank you so much, Dylan, for that introduction. You can actually leave your slide up with your contact details for a few minutes while we take some questions from the audience. For anybody who has anything they'd like to ask Dylan, you can type into our Zoom chat box and we will let him know.
And apologies for the technical difficulties. Split screening.
Ditto on that. Gretha, on your end, can you see any questions in our chat perhaps?
None at the moment, or anybody want to ask can also raise your hands or unmute yourself and ask. Or maybe you can ask later when it pops up.
Yeah, there'll be a couple more, maybe two more Q&A sections after each of the succeeding two talks. So you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions. Worst case scenario, if you think of something really important, but you weren't able to ask it during the event, you can send our speakers an email later on. They will leave their contact details with you, and Kritha and I will get in touch with everyone as well after the talk so we can CC in our speakers and you'll have a way to reach them. So if for now there are no questions, I think it's okay for us to proceed to our next speaker. If it's all right, Gretha, please share share the TechTalk slides for a second while we introduce our second speaker. Okay, so Dr. Wen-Bin Yu is a full professor and research group leader at Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden, or XTBG, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and director of Yunnan's key laboratory for conservation of tropical rainforests and Asian elephants. He also coordinates the GCCD. He earned his PhD from the Kunming Institute of Botany, CAS, in 2011, and subsequently conducted postdoctoral research at the Field Museum of Natural History, 2012 to 2013, and at Pennsylvania State University from 2015 to 2018. His studies integrate field, genomic, and collections-based approaches to illuminate the origins and evolution of biodiversity, assess genetic diversity in threatened species, and optimize ex situ conservation and DNA barcoding protocols. His studies span Orbanchaceae, Ranunculaceae, Orchidaceae, and Apocynaceae, providing critical data for safeguarding plant diversity in tropical Asia. So without any further ado, Dr. Wen-Bin Yu, please go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you, David, for introduction. So I will share my screen. Krista, can you? Okay, I can reach you. Okay, can you see the slide?
It's loading in.
It's loading, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we see the PowerPoint now, but not full screen yet.
Yeah, now it's full screen. Okay.
Now full screen.
Okay, so I will start. So yeah, today I will be give some introduction about the biodiversity and the conservation of Dipterocarps. So my name is Wen-Bin Yu. I'm from the Chitamana Tropic Botanic Garden. I also the GCCD coordinator. So yeah, so I mentioned about the GCC they mentioned about. So I'm going to do this one. I skip and for the Dipterocarps. So we have a five committee members. So later will be introduced by Chuck. So Chuck is the chair of the for the scientific and for the GCCD, and also we have three other four members from different countries. And also the XTBG now with the leader coordinator. So from 2020 is Sven. He's a lead after he left XTBG, so I will take the lead 2022. So also we have the office in XTBG. We have a secretary general, Ms. Xiao Yunxue, and also we have assistant Guan Zhen. He just joined us in the last year. And about the organize, the first thing I want to give some introduction about the Dipterocarps family. The second one we will give some report about GCCD. The first one we know about the Dipterocarps is about 22 genera, more than 540 species across the pantropic. Now in South Asia is the core of this family, so 18 genera and over 510 species. So we can see not only for the trees, also have some of the in some dry forest, and the discovery of the species is very old, like the 1755, and this family is later bit. So the first species for this family, and about around we can say about how the discovery of this family. So the highest is the 90, 70, 80. So there's very many species, but after that, so not too many species. The last one we copy based on the POW, we can see the last one that's 2021. So, but I managed to communicate with others. Here some new species, maybe potential new species we've discovered, described in the future. And for this family, we know about traditionally have a three subfamily, but now we call it the only two subfamilies. The Myrtoides is most, in the Africa, and another one very young one genus, Posido Myrtoides, is South Africa, only one species. And most of the species in the South Asia. And based on the the current evidence, we know the Sharia is very big in the genus, but based on the new evidence, this several of the small genera will be celebrated. So this is why we call now at 32 genera, and this is what here. So many of the small genera, the genera be separate from the Sharia. So the largest one, the biggest, the genus still be the Hopia, and another one is the Dipterocarps, the most of them in South Asia. And we know about the 2023, so the red list of Dipterocarps is released. So based on the assessment of the 535 species, we can find about 67% species we call it understood. This is a big number compared to other families. And we know about 70 species is quite endangered, and also 143 is because it's endangered. So based on from the suits, so most of the agriculture, the South Asia, much of the forest we cut for the for the crop growing, like of the rubber and the oil palm, and also we can the logging is also very important through this area. So this is the big number. Before that, Alison Swin, as we did about the assessment about how many species potentially in the in the Atlantic area based on the survey about so far only half species maybe up to the requirement the Arctic 11, so and only 70% in the Arctic area. And in the Borneo, this is the largest area of the the Dipterocarps, more than 250 species. So this area we can see still very few number of species in the in the pretty in the top area of this region. So this very we see the Dipterocarps is under very good. So we take more attention about this family. These are the very basic information about the family. So how about the GCCD? So give some information about this one. So GCCD, so in 2019, the early of 2020, so we have the 6-year anniversary XTBG. So during this, assessment of the XTBG, we invited many, many of the gardens leaders come to XTBG. During the conference, the Paul Smith, communicated with the former director, the Chen Jing, he mentioned about Dipterocarps potentially should be very important in South Asia. So XTBG maybe can take. So this will be in 2020, COVID-19. So, but we still have the meeting in October. So at that time, Swen organized, the meetings from all the XTBG researchers. We start to be potentially have established for this, XTBG. So obviously we after the COVID-19, so we launched about the office. This is where I start to lead for the GCCD. So I give a little bit about the introduction about the XTBG. So we know, I mentioned about the XTBG is the institute in Chinese dance. So this is the very largest network in China. We have more than 100 institutes. So we cover over all fields of the science and technology. So XTBG now we is not very young, but very old. So we just founded about 1985. So by botanist Professor Cai Xitao. So now we know about this XTBG. So Beijing is over there. So this is the South Asia, Singapore here. So we can see about very south of the China. So now we also in the 5A scenic spot in China. This is the top is scenic spot in China. So we have more than 14 collections, Texas living collection in the garden. We now have 39 collections of the gardens. So we also have the forest in the garden. Every year we have over 2 million visitors per year. So this is the map of XTBG. So this year we have the Dipterocarps symposium near XTBG. So maybe you can say about, we can call it the west garden, the mist for tourism, and it's the east garden. We can see here the research center is here. So the west garden we always open to the the public. And still have them the east also have the forest, and the rainforest that's in this area. So why build XTBG? So XTBG because in the very early age, the rubber plantation is very important for the source in China. So in China, we have a very small area in tropic areas. So the Mana is very low, very is from the tropical area. So we established for this garden at the beginning. It's for the rubber plantation. So importantly, so we can see the garden like a world. So we can this is the river, lots of river around here. So this is like very narrow area. So we can always like the gourd, yeah. So if you possibility join for the symposium this year. So XTBG have the research center have 3 parts. It's the tropical rainforest and the tropical plant resource and subject use, and also for the Center for Integrated Conservation. So we have more than 40 research groups. We also have the city bank, the public service center, and also have the gardening department. And we have a sense to until 2024, we have published several high impact papers. And also we have we have the tradition of the whole garden. So most of the trees we can be searching from the garden based on the data map. And now people maybe heard about in China we now to establish for the next podcast system. So in China, at the end of this year, so we have 5 national gardens. So because Beijing and the Guangzhou it have been established 2022. So and potentially hopefully we have the like of the Shanghai Chengshan and the XTBG will be officially launched in this year. Yeah. So everything is done. Yeah. And about the some of the progress. So we organize some of the online workshop for the Dipterocarps from the Bray and Borneo, and also have the Vietnam, China. So we also doing some internet cooperation in this year. We lead our group with the FRAME and also the TRCRC. So we're doing some knowledge exchange. I also visited with the Super Garden. So we want to establish the network to enlarge for our for the working in this area. And also in China, we also organize the Scientific Technology Cooperation Conference. So this is why we, in China, we have most of the natural reserve in the south. So we just be, organized for the conference. We invited all the staff, natural reserve, and the forest and the production, management to doing the conference discussion about how to be X conservation, the each conservation discussed in China. And this year we will be the expanding out to the global conservation is important. Chuck will be introduced more about this. And conservation practice in China. So we doing some work. Yeah. So far XTBG we have a group for different types of teams. So one is for multi-nothing group, propagation and omics group, and a genetic evolution group, and the education and information group. And here, so we in China, we have a very small area, tropic area. So with the earliest, the first species we only found, the specimen collected in the 1980s. This is from the previously called Guangdong, but now it's Guangxi province. So largest of the, the forest we found in Hainan Island. This is really the 1950s. So, and the tallest tree we found in Shizamana, Mongna area, this is Parashori sinensis. Now this is the tree is very, up to almost 80 meters in this area. So it's large tree. So this is very important discovery. For example, we think this is you can see about the China, even the south. Here have the very, like the typical rainforest to South, similar to the South Asia. And so far we have called the, certain species, but we sure about we have the Dipterocarps tabernatus. This is the cultivated long more than 100 years in Shizamana. So otherwise we have the 12 species in China. So we have the one Parashori bankinei. This is just newly discovered in 2023. And also we have two species in the South Tibet. We didn't know, but actually we didn't know have any living collections we found. So far in China, we have still about the the Dipterocarps under Hasut. We have many small trees just nearby the town, the village, or near the rice field, and the very isolated, very small populations. So far in China, we have the 5 species we put in the ranked 1 in the first class of the national protected species. From the IUCN, we can see 5 species we call it to be endangered, and also 1 species we can catch in the wild. But based on our survey, we say about we have 80 natural reserve or 66 conservation community. We protect all the 9 species in China. So, but we can say if we save some species, we can save on the Parashori sinensis and atomic, and Hopia we can see have large numbers, in China. But we back to the other species, even have more populations, but we only few individuals in the wild, So this is the institute conservation in China. In China, we have many of the gardens or institutes. We have the living collections. Most of the species have the X conservation in China. But back to see the source, we can see many of the the garden or the arboretums, the source very few, and also many of them just be introduced from from one garden to another garden, so not from the wild. So actually we have many like of the garden arboretums doing the conservation or to the species, but the genetic source is very low. So XTBG, we have a long history about the X conservation for the Dipterocarps. So far, we have not only we have conserved maybe or 9 species, or 9 species, but species in the garden. And most species we can see can be flowering very well and fruiting. So, but yes, it's very important. This is very for the X conservation. So, but we have a specific garden of the Dipterocarps, And so you can see here, this is the west garden. We have the here is a Dipterocarps collection here. And most of the species kind of here. And also we have in the east garden, this is the research center here. So we also have the Parashoria and the other Dipterocarps near to here. So in the west garden, many of the the plants maybe only from limited populations. So because the West Garden very limited space. So in the East Garden, we have doing here, we collect cover for different areas here. So for the we can consider the more of the the genetic source here. So far we're doing many of the field management survey. So we collected potentially all the wider population. So far we have surveyed more than 100 population here, and 80 population we have settings doing the propagation in the garden, in the greenhouse. So that's very important for we doing the excavation. So far we try to be in the future we want to cover all the population in China. So we do build that. We have the collections. The first thing is we want to, because we have some of taxonomy issues about the Vertica, Cytomycin and Guancensis. Based on our current study, we support the Cytomycin to be celebrated species. Also, Hopia have in China, from China, we have 3 species recognized in the from China, but based on the new the updated versions, only 1 species. Based on the new genetic evidence, I think in China only just be 1 species. Just the Hopia, chinensis is just a single species. Like the Hopia, should be very, very good clear taxonomy here. So based on the Paleozoria, we have the genomic analysis. So far we found in China we have the large population as mentioned before. So we have a large population, but based on genetic evidence, we think the Paleozoria chinensis in China we have already. The Shidamana have 1 genetic source. In Guangxi is not a genotype source, and only found diversity in the southeast Yunnan, maybe Hebei area have multiple genetic types. So based on this is very, very important for us. Can say about for the excavation with the Shidamana should be not too many individuals needed. The Guangxi also the same. We should be taking more attention about in the the South Yunnan. So maybe have more genetic type here. So also for Vertica, we also found that in the Vertica analysis on the Guancensis, we found have different sources can support for the future excavation. So we have access for the genetic diversity of the for all the for the seedlings collected in the garden. So we so we are doing the plantation in the garden. So 2023. We have the visit the frame and also this year frame. So we know frame have the reservation for the Dipterocarps. Working just become the UNESO this year. What had to decide. So it's very important to give us the confidence in the future we can do in the propagation for in the garden here. And I mentioned before, this is the research center. We are quite aware here have the living collections at here. So this is Paleozoria and other Dipterocarps here. So now we have clean for this area. So we want to be, we have a large number of the living collections in the garden. So we have so many seedlings. So we put all the populations, in the we select maybe 20 to 30 individuals for the living collections planted in the East Garden. So we can want to, to protect potentially all the genetic diversity in the garden for the living collections. As we know, most of the Dipterocarp seeds we cannot banking in the banking them. So it's very important that we have the living collections. So we also do conservation. We have a program to conservation innovative Dipterocarps in China. So we get all of the natural reserve together. So they can doing the conservation with the garden, also can doing the excavations. That's very important. And also we doing this, get this, this is issue. So we can do the restoration because we have many collections here. So we want to do the restoration in the reduction for our living collections to some of the natural reserve or the near natural reserve. So far we're doing some of the reduction. So in the Xinjiang and the Lancang, most of the in the south of the Yunnan, because we have based on that we plan in one side we get the multiple source planting for the the living collection, the seedlings saplings in the area. So you can see, so in the garden we cannot get everything living in the garden. So we want to have get some of the living collections once introduced in the natural reserve. That's very important activities. And also in China, we just launched a new program we can call the China Planet Guardian program. So this is just we want to connect for the conservation for the the community. So this is very important. So we know this is we can have the English name just Z1. This is what I mean. So we want to every each family or each person he can be protect one species. So we can call it the Z. Yeah. So this is just started in last year. So for the one we have the restoration side in the garden. So we try to find Dipterocarps in the for the individuals planted by each individual in the community. Yeah. Other things important. So in China we have another other activities is with the community conservation. So some of the Dipterocarps is very important for the local community. For example, some of the Thai people see the temple want to doing this, planting many of the Dipterocarp trees in the around for the temple. Also the community to be like to doing this endangered species, and even also in the cities. So this maybe can we can get more extra space doing the each conservation and also can contact the genetic source. And the future plan for the GCCD. So I give some of the my personal ideas. So we discussed about during the the symposium this year. So we know about so far we have a very good database or information about the the species checklist is already there. But so far we still want to be update. So particularly for the taxonomy of the literatures for the tax specimen we get the global inventory about the species and the database can be useful for everyone. Now we have a database, but I hope can be to read and for the public very quick. And also we want to do so far the IUCN and of the GBIF have very good information about the distribution of the information. I think we still be many of the specimen did not be digitalized, so we important to be update and get more information to collect all the literatures and the specimen. We can get the get the very well information. So this will help us to be the update for the conservation department. Another thing is we doing for the the conservation. So previously we use the the alpha diversity. So I think it's important to include for the new phylogenetic evidence doing for the conservation for to get the pretty the area of conservation. So this is why we're doing the phylogenesis, doing which the factor which the hotspots for the genetic diversity. Yeah, this is the future plan. So this is I mentioned about the biodiversity for the key biodiversity area. So this is very important that we can, based on the biological evidence, can help us to do more detail, combine with the GP data. And other things, we want to build up the genome database. So far, we have a it's a big number of species have been sequenced for the Dipterocarps, but so far we still missing some of the some of the key clades. So this is very important of doing this one because we're doing extra conservation. We need to about the typing of the diversity. So we build the database. We very important. We can be get the can get the general or be the universe markers to assess for the genetic diversity, and also we can focus on the some specific target species for the genetic diversity, help us to be get the the genetic coverage for the extra conservation. And for the targets, so I want to be the complete the global innovative Dipterocarps. So we want to get a worldwide database can be useful for all, for the public, and also for the can be doing the launch this for the conservation. And also we want to do about the identify the species diversity and the hotspots. So we can be doing the the delineate about the pretty conservation area. I think it's very important to be for the local or the regional conservation. And also we want doing potentially as the regional genomic change network. So far based on the red list, so we have still have more than half species did not have an active conservation. So it's very important that we can doing this exchange. Some places maybe not have the technique to be doing this one, so we doing the regional area, the neighboring area can do the population doing the excavation. Yeah, this is almost my talk. So finally, I think so far in China, we just get some of the the funding source, can support for our conservation, but we still be looking for some of the international funding can get more collaboration with the South Asian countries and African countries. That's my talk. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wen-Bin Yu, for your presentation, for letting us know what's been happening in terms of Dipterocarp conversation in the XTBG and the GCCD as a whole. Now we have some time for people to ask questions and to engage with our speaker. If you guys have questions, please feel free to put them in our chat box, or you can, I don't know, raise your hand and unmute maybe to ask questions. Our speakers are very nice and very friendly. They won't bite, I promise. So please do go ahead, ask questions. Maybe I'll ask a very simple starter question to get things going. So, if oh wait, an actual question. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will read this question from Yao. So hi, Yao from Frim here. Most dipterocarps in aseasonal forests of insular Southeast Asia are generally flowering species that don't flower regularly. From literature, flowering of the GF species is triggered by consecutive low night temperature. What is the environmental trigger that initiates the flowering of XC2 at XTBG, and do they flower annually?
So far we only few species, can annual flowering in XTBG for the excavation. So one Dipterocarps that's related, and also the like the Hopia highlanensis. But they're not common. Some species even we be have the glowing in the garden. We have more than 40 years. They are not flowering. So, but for the the Chinese species, so we have 9 species in the garden. So 8 species can be flowering very well. And also we have some of the long collected species from the South Asia can get very well, but not annually. So based on some of my experience, give example for the Parascholia sinensis. So this species, based on the current evidence, so he have the have the massive flowering. If sometimes the earlier year is very dry, drought introduced for the massive flowering for the Parascholia sinensis. That's not only in garden in China the same. So we can, if some the species in the massive flowering in the garden, so we can also expect the also be in the wild. So yeah, maybe temperature is a very important factor, but I think for the maybe the water jets can give much pressure for some species in China, I think. Yeah, that's my my answer. Yeah, but it's common. Dipterocarps have long maybe cannot long term not for the flowering. So this sometimes maybe 40, 10 years, even longer, for the flowering. Yeah.
Thank you, Wen-Bin. If you guys have similar experiences with your dipterocarps, or there's a different trigger for the dipterocarps in your research sites or in your country, please feel free to share that in our chat. Meanwhile, we're gonna jump to another question, I think, from Dylan, perhaps.
Yeah, if it's okay to ask, thank you for that. That was a really interesting presentation. I have a question. The species that's in South America, you showed the maps that there's one, I think. Two questions. When was it discovered? And do you think there's more
1971
dipterocarps to be found in the world?
Yeah, 1972 or 71, I remember. So yeah. So this is the new genus, very, very late. Yeah, 1972, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wen-Bin. There are comments coming in our chat box. Yeah, so the rainfall might also play a role in Rimbundahan. This is Malaysia, yes. So they had dipterocarps flowering last month. More info here. Thailand. They bloom every year during the dry season around November to February, so very different from some other places in Southeast Asia. Very interesting. See, I think it would be great for everybody to kind of be able to share this info together with the GCCD. I mean, that's what the GCCD is for. It'd be interesting
Yes,
to
yeah.
make those comparisons. Yeah. So, more info from Singapore coming in. Oh no, this is a question. For wild in situ populations, monitored by XTBG, what would be the population numbers of mature trees for the population to be considered sustainable? Good conservation question.
Yeah, so I think this is maybe cannot answer about how many mature individuals. So yeah, so depend for my idea. So I depend on the genetic coverage for if we have the genetic variation is very high, so close for the species, we may need more individuals for some of them. So because we have a more representative from different populations, for even some of small populations, for example, we have a lack of the pressurized analysis because this species so far we found is a high genetic unit, genetic similarity in the Xithuanbana is just to be even we have a large number in this area. So, but based on the current genomic sequencing, so it's very identical genome of this population in Xithuanbana and the Guangxi another one. So and have a maybe 5 genotype in the Yunnan. So if based on the current opinions, maybe 7 individuals that's enough, but not that enough. But I think at least we can cover the maximum the individual genetic diversity of the species for can be enough. But we cannot. Some still have some other variations, even with the populations, there's still be variations in there, but we cannot get all of them. Yeah. So I think depends on the species, and also we cannot see how many individuals. So this is why we give a very rough. So 20 individuals for one populations. We try to cover them. Depends on the space you can do in this. This is why we see now we're doing like the community conservation. So because if we have the genetic for one populations, for example we have a very identical genetic for this populations. We can have a few individuals in the garden. We can also put other individuals out of the garden, but we can monitoring, checking for the information about the individuals in the future. If we have a potentially can be access about in the future, yeah. But that's my answer.
Okay, thank you to everyone who asked questions, and thank you, Dr. Wen-Bin, for your responses and your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that's about as much time as we have for questions for now. There will be opportunity again later for others to ask, but for now we're going to move on to our third and last speaker for today. I will request. Thank you, Dr. Wen-Bin. I will request Gritha to share that one slide. Okay, so our third speaker for today is Dr. Charles Cannon. Dr. Cannon was introduced to the magnificent rainforests of Southeast Asia as an undergraduate researcher in the Gunung Palung National Park, Indonesia. He has since worked in several countries and islands across the region on a wide range of topics. He has been tenured faculty at Texas Tech University, group leader of an ecological evolution research group at the Xishuangbanna Tropical Botanical Garden for 4 years, founding director of the Center for Tree Science at the Morton Arboretum, and is now director of forest and tree research at the Singapore Botanic Gardens. His future work emphasizes the importance of looking forward into the reality of the Anthropocene, and finding the best way to give nature's diversity safe passage through the upcoming biodiversity bottleneck. Without further ado, Dr. Chuck, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, David. Does everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. I will start to share my screen. Share play. I guess I will not seeing if you always get new pop-ups, right? When you do something.
I know.
Something you've never seen before. Yeah, so thank you for everyone to attend the webinar today, and thank you for hanging around to this talk. I know it's kind of getting late in the afternoon, so I hope you're still got a little bit of attention left. I'll try not to talk too long. So the point of my talk is to kind of sell the idea of the GCCD and attending our symposium and then participating with our activities after the symposium that we're organizing in just a month. But to do that, I want to give you a little bit about my path, about how I got to the GCCD and in this role. Yeah, so as David mentioned, I spent a year in rainforest of Gunung Palung National Park in West Kalimantan, Indonesia. But I went there as an anthropologist, so I was certainly not a botanist at that time. I was very interested in human evolution, primate behavior, and I spent a lot of time chasing gibbons around. Very difficult to stay with them. If I was able to stay with them for 10 minutes, sometimes it was really good. But this work definitely introduced me to these rainforests and to the importance of the trees. And I'm saying this because for those of you that advise students, or for students that might be attending this webinar, I didn't really become a botanist until I was 27 or so, and I didn't really imagine myself in that role. But as you learn things and as you make people more aware of the issues and what is really important from an ecological perspective, from an evolutionary perspective, from a conservation perspective, you can broaden people's attention and actually awaken a passion in them. So even though I was very interested in primate behavior, I wound up studying trees and became very fascinated by how they live, how they create forests and things like that. And so, as you think about your conservation work or your own research work or any kind of work that you're doing in this sphere, giving opportunities to young people is very important. So this was a very transformative experience in my life. I grew up in a small farm in West Texas, very, very, very different, had never really traveled before. So going to Indonesia was a completely new experience. So please do, I know it's a lot of hard work sometimes, but creating opportunities for people to experience kind of unusual opportunities and to experience unusual circumstances and have that kind of exposure that can raise their awareness is very important, I think. And so some of you may be familiar with my work on Lithocarpus. So this is what I did for my PhD. I've had a number of colleagues, a number of students that have continued to work on this group. And so this was kind of my path to trees and really beginning to understand how tree species evolve, their biogeography, their ecology. And I think there's a lot of interesting similarities and also differences between stone oaks and Dipterocarps. And that's something I wanted to continue to explore. And that was kind of one of my ways into Dipterocarp research, is trying to think about comparative studies that could be done between these two genera. Stone oaks are mainly in the uplands and Dipterocarps are in the lowlands. They're both ectomycorrhizal. They both have kind of poorly dispersed fruit. And then there's lots of other things that you could do to compare them. So as I was studying these stone oaks and these trees, I became more and more interested in Dipterocarps. And I think my awareness kind of finally settled on the idea that the Dipterocarps are such an important group in Southeast Asia that really they should be a focus. I mean, and if you look around, even though they're one of the better studied tree groups, there actually aren't that many people actively working on them. There's so much to be done, and they form the forests in this region. And so this kind of has led me to focus more and more on Dipterocarps. And even though I don't claim to be an expert, I would really like to spend the latter stages of my career kind of digging into Dipterocarps, maybe doing some comparative work between Lithocarps and Dipterocarps. And then why conservation? So I talk about the Anthropocene a lot. Sorry to make you say it, David, but I think it's a term that's very useful because it kind of frames the future as being up to us. Humans are a big part of the problem, but we must be the solution. So we really need to lean into the Anthropocene and accept this responsibility of all these changes that we're making to the world, and to try to do our best to kind of provide that safe passage to nature's diversity into the future. I mean, so we're doing dramatic things to the climate. You know, we're going into this unprecedented temperature regime that, you know, could be several degrees centigrade above current conditions and above conditions that have, you know, been prevalent on Earth for millions of years. So we're really going into unprecedented territory in terms of climate, also land use. I mean, this graphic here is always kind of shocking to me. Like, you know, there's only 4% of wild mammals make up the biomass of mammals on Earth. It's either humans or our livestock make up the rest of it. And so we're obviously transforming Earth in many, many different ways. You know, there's graphics here at the bottom, but I, you know, kind of want to focus on this biodiversity bottleneck. This is something that E.O. Wilson has talked about as well. But, you know, instead of thinking about an extinction event, let's think about how do we get this diversity through this bottleneck? Because we're constricting the areas where nature can be found. We're really changing the energy and the water and all of those other resources that go into those natural environments. How do we get as much diversity through this bottleneck as possible? And I think we really need to think of innovative ways to do this, and maybe doing things that might be slightly controversial or seem unnatural, but they are necessary for that period of time when we're getting nature through that bottleneck. So these are kind of the reasons I came to the GCCD. So I had an interest in primates that brought me to the rainforest, but then I realized to have primates, you need trees and forests. And then as I understood more and more about the Southeast Asian rainforests, I realized that you really must study the Dipterocarps, you must understand them, you must try to conserve them. You know, you can be fascinated with orchids, you can be fascinated with all the kind of understory plants, but if you don't have a forest, if you don't have that overstory, if you don't have that canopy, that environment that those Dipterocarps create, you're going to have to save those things ex situ. But if we have those forests, if we have that kind of structure, then maybe all those things can find their place on their own in a sense. And so as I understood more about the state of the world, I realized that conservation biology is really the most important issue. And I think botanic gardens are also that, you know, kind of pitching out here that the importance of botanic gardens in a lot of this. Botanic gardens have played a major role in the world's economy and development in the past. And I think in the future going forward, we really have to play a major role because we know how to grow, we know how to propagate, we know how to collect, we know how to identify, all those things that are very important for conservation biology. So encourage people, and it's also a place where you can intersect with many different audiences, many different parts of society. So botanic gardens are a very important place to work. So I encourage you all to kind of explore those options if you have some opportunities. So then kind of coming on to the GCCD, Wen-Bin's already talked about this slide. So we do have 5 members of the steering committee. This is something we want to change. We want to increase the number. We want to increase the geographic representation and also different sectors. We don't all need to be scientists. We don't all need to have that kind of training. We need people who are involved in policy. We need people who are involved in community engagement, all those kinds of things. So right now, the office of the GCCD, Wen-Bin already talked about this a little bit. I really want to kind of thank Wan Zhen. She's played a big role in kind of keeping things motivated, getting all that groundwork done, making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And she'll play a big role in the success of the symposium that's upcoming. And I wanted to mention too, Dr. Kwa, who's there in Morton Arboretum. She's played a big role in kind of the organization and kind of will play a big role in the facilitation of the symposium when it's happening in November as well. So the primary function of this GCCD and the symposium is community building. Wen-Bin talked a lot about what they've done in the first 5 years. So here at the top, you can see we're renewing the MOU between XTBG and BGCI this year, and they're generally 5-year agreements. So the first 5 years is up in November. We're going to renew it again. And so this next phase, we really want to kind of internationalize, build regional networks. They've done a very good job within China of building networks and creating activities, establishing ex situ collections. we want to go to the next step now of kind of building out regionally and connecting with all of the partners. There are quite a few people actively working on Dipterocarps and in forest generally. We want to try to connect with those people and build a community. So kind of how can you participate? How might you contribute to the GCCD? One of those is to volunteer to be on the steering committee. We also have an expert committee. I haven't really talked about it, and I'm not really going to spend a lot of time talking about it because we kind of just assembled it virtually and send out a lot of emails to people trying to pull them together. But I think we should be a little bit more critical about its composition and the type of experts we have on it in the future. So if you would like to take an active role, please do let us know. And you don't have to attend the symposium to do this. If you're unable to attend the symposium, but you still would like to take some kind of leadership role or some kind of expertise contribution, please let us know, and we'll be accepting them at the symposium and kind of figuring out a way how to appoint. And so this is all part of the MOUs. We're working out the details of how these things will be done. We really want to have better geographic and societal sector representation. Again, what I mean by that is kind of policy makers, even corporates, more and more organizations like Sime Darby are investing in kind of green developments. And even though you might think of that as kind of greenwashing, I think we should engage with them because they're trying their best to a certain extent, and we should at least try to give them the best tools that they can use to achieve those goals. And so trying to create a broad representation is also part of our effort in this next phase of the GCCD. And some other ways you can participate or contribute is to become an official member. Again, we're kind of finalizing exactly what this means in the future. You can do it either as an individual or an institution. So I just want to put this thought in your head. Can you join the GCCD? And please contact us if you're interested. It doesn't really involve a major commitment, but it gives us credibility, gives you credibility as well, and gives us some leverage as we look for funding, as we look for ways to complete the network. And you can also become a species steward or a species safe site. Dylan mentioned this a bit as he was describing the GCCs in general. These are ways in which you can kind of volunteer to be a champion for either a species that you are actively managing or perhaps providing a safe site for that species. We can be flexible and adaptive about this according to your circumstances. But again, it provides recognition and resources for you as you're working on the ground, and perhaps connects you to a larger network of people who might be able to contribute in material exchange, expertise exchange, many different ways we might be able to help one another. And I want to touch upon another framework that I've been thinking about for a while. This is actually part of a paper. I don't know if you noticed it back in the past, there was a special issue of Plants, People, and Planet for the Global Tree Assessment. And I was one of the editors for that. And we mentioned this plant diversity conservation network in that paper. And it kind of links up to one thing Dylan was talking about, kind of the complementarity and making sure we have everybody at the table that are kind of involved in this whole ecosystem. I also like to think about it as an ecosystem of conservation, how you have to have all the functional parts here present and active and communicating. And so I've kind of broken it down into some 4 basic pillars of discover, grow, plant, and manage. And these should all be communicating with one another, exchanging information, and we kind of, and thinking about all the things that go into that. And also there's technology in the middle. And so technology is playing a very disruptive role in many ways, assisting, automated ways of monitoring things, even planting seeds in some cases. But technology has could play a very big role in kind of transforming the way we do things. So kind of thinking about what these different pillars might be. This is a long list of stuff. I'm not going to really go through it, but I want to try to get people to think about their place in these different roles. Like, where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself making the biggest contribution? What kinds of things can you contribute? And then how can it contribute to the other parts of this puzzle? you know, if you're a scientist doing fundamental research and you're trying to understand the phylogeny of Dipterocarps, how does that then feed into what kinds of information do you need to share to those people who are growing it or planting it and so forth? And then there's technology. You know, a lot of times the technology can be kind of the bridging aspect, because a lot of times those technologies are somewhat agnostic to field. You know, if you've got environmental sensors, we all need environmental sensors, whether they're in our greenhouse, in our nursery, or whether they're in a natural forest. And so we need to look for ways in which we can facilitate engineers to engage with us to develop these kinds of technologies. So there's also external factors involved in this. You know, there's kind of the reality of the situation on the ground, how remote you are, how much funding, what is the policy environment in your situation? You know, is it very difficult or is it relatively permissive? Funding is always important. Engagement, you know, how do we engage with the public? How do we let them know what's happening? And then mentor, you know, like, do we have a succession plan? Do we think about the future? How are we going to pass this on to the people who are going to lead this in the next generation? All of these things need to kind of be considered. And so I'm kind of putting this all into this framework of this Plant Diversity Conservation Network. And this is something I hope to discuss and hope to develop further at the GCCD symposium at XTBG next month. So encouraging people to think about what contributions you make, where you fit into this community, and who you should be connecting with. So it's kind of finding your place, finding your leverage, and who you should be talking to kind of have the most impact. And then kind of thinking about then how you have those external influences on engagement or mentorship or funding and so forth. So this is one thing I want to talk about at the symposium. So again, we're having it this at the end of November. You've seen this information before. Registration is still open. So I hope attending this webinar is encouraging you and kind of enticing your interest to attend. And we are giving out travel grants, and we're very close to being able to award them. So we had a number of applicants, so it's actually fairly competitive. So don't be disappointed if you're not awarded one of these travel grants. We're going to be letting people know early next week. And even if you don't receive a travel grant, we want to remain engaged with you. So we're going to reach out and try to find ways in which we can help you further your career, help you connect with the network, because there's just not enough of us. I mean, that's just a basic fact. There are not enough people doing conservation. There's not enough people studying these forests, not enough people actively working on Dipterocarps. So we really want to encourage all of you to remain engaged, whether or not we have the money to bring you to the symposium. So we will work with you somehow to remain, to continue your participation. So some expectations about participants. You know, if you're like me, I oftentimes leave conferences kind of frustrated. You know, you go sit in a quiet, dark room that is always way, way, way too cold, and you go through a number of talks that are all different topics. And so by the end of 2 days of this, your mind is a blur. You don't really remember a lot of the details, and you maybe ask a question or two, and you've got a pocket full of, you know, business cards with a conference bag as well. So, but we want to go beyond this. We really want to engage you. So if you come to the meeting, we really encourage you to come prepared to actively participate. And we want to create a common consensus around a lot of these issues. So, you know, Wen-Bin talked about the red list of Dipterocarps. We have a strong basis to start with. There is a lot of awareness of Dipterocarps. Of course, it can be improved. Of course, we can fill in some details, but we're to a point where we can really sensibly and reasonably create priorities. So that's one thing we really want everyone to come thinking about. What is their priority from their local situation all the way up to the regional and so forth. So for the agenda, again, I probably shouldn't have called it a symposium. It's much more like a workshop. And when I looked at this, it's like, just 3 days. It's really not long enough. But we realize everybody's busy, and this is a kind of an expensive thing to pull off. So we're going to put as much into the 3 days as we can. And you can notice too, I mean, these are just kind of bullet points. I don't really have them on time because we might be somewhat flexible if the discussion really begins to develop, we may focus on that. So we're going to be a bit adaptive even in how things go. But you might notice there's only a few keynotes. And so we have David Burslam's going to talk, Wen-Bin's going to talk. I've got a talk with Peter Ashton, who can't attend, but we're developing material together and really want these to be more of a discussion. So we're giving them a full hour, and we want to kind of break it down into a discussion as well, even though there will be a presentation. I mean, this is a chance to pick the minds of very knowledgeable people who have a lot of experience. And so shouldn't just let that 45 minutes go by and there's like a couple of questions that someone comes up with on the spot, and then we let them off the stage. I think we really want to kind of prioritize and kind of capture that moment and try to have a discussion. And I'm going to try to facilitate this as much, and we'll have other people there trying to facilitate these. But then the underlying things as well are things that we really expect you to come and fully participate in, you know, kind of the community building, kind of, we're going to have intentional ways of getting people to interact and to share knowledge and share experience and backgrounds. We'll have a couple of sessions about prioritizing and determining the goals of the GCCD. We want to talk about your country, your regional situation. So, you know, if you could even, you know, think about putting together a few slides. Maybe you have something for your work. Maybe you have something, and we're going to be reaching out with people as the time gets closer to about what we would hope you could prepare. And I've got a survey coming up that's going to kind of give you some insight into that. But we really want you to come prepared to engage and to participate and to contribute, because we want this to be more of a grassroots organization and also kind of locally and regionally relevant. So this is the survey. There's a QR code where it's about 25 questions, so it's pretty long, but a lot of those questions are kind of yes, no, kind of ranking how you feel about the importance of different aspects. We would like to receive your response by the 12th of November to give us a little bit of time to digest and analyze the results and to incorporate it into the conference activities. We will be sending you reminders about this. If you're going to attend the symposium and you haven't filled it out, we're going to be chasing you up the day you get there to make sure you do fill it out. And you don't have to attend the symposium to take the survey as well. So we encourage you all to share this. I'm going to be putting it on my Facebook. I think BGCI, David and Gretha mentioned they're going to be making it available online as well through various channels. We encourage you, if you take a picture of this screen, to share it on your social media and to get people to contribute to the survey. And as far as kind of follow-up activities after the symposium, we'll be convening a new steering committee. We hope it grows a little bit in both geographic and expertise representation. We'll be following up those people who identified themselves as champions, who are willing to kind of take a very active role in pushing the activities that we propose at the symposium. So we hope to develop some working groups around different topics that we identify as priorities. And I've been involved with the global community of FAG-AC research, and through the IUFRO network, we were actually holding virtual meetings every 6 months, and these were kind of scientific discussions. It doesn't have to be science, but I'd like to try to bring this to the GCCD and have virtual meetings so that students, postdocs, anyone, conservation biologists can present projects, talk about the progress that they're making, and share that with people regionally. This was actually very effective, what we managed to do for several years. And this was kind of during COVID, post-COVID, so people were very used to being virtual. It can be very powerful, and I think I would like to try to pick this back up. It'd be good to try to schedule smaller regional meetings for exchange and training. Again, this will kind of come out of the work that we're going to do at the meeting in XTBG in November. I think it'd be a good idea to organize a session for the GCCD at the upcoming ATBC meeting, which is being hosted by XTBG in June, I think, is end of June, early July, I think. And I think the deadline is actually November 28th. So I think we can actually together propose a session with a good list of contributions for this meeting so that we could hold our own special session there at that ATBC annual meeting. And then there's also the GBGC, the Global Botanic Gardens Congress, to be held at Morton Arboretum in 2027. We might think about trying to present something there in the future. So there's a number of different things that we can do coming out of the symposium, developing these working groups, having meetings, and then trying to schedule our future meetings as well. Okay, I have 2 of this. Okay, I knew I edited this. So anyway, I think I've said all this anyway. So anyway, that's my talk and my kind of pitch for attending and participating in the GCCD. And I'll go back to this slide so that you can contribute to that survey. It's also got my contact information. So thank you very much. And should I stop sharing or what should I do?
Hi,
Leave it
Chuck.
here?
I think it's fine if you leave it up for a bit while we have the
Okay.
Q&A so that people can scan the QR code. But
Sure.
for those of you in the audience who have questions for Chuck after his talk, please feel free. You can type it in our chat. Greta, if you're around, please check the chat as well, as I'm still recording. Well, I hope it's recording. Okay.
No questions in the chat box.
All right.
This one.
There's a message.
Mhm.
Yes. Would you like to read it, Greta? Go ahead.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's from Quatman, Purwodadi Botanic Gardens from Indonesia. Hi, Wen-Bin Yu and Chuck Cannon. We have a collection of Dipterocarps focusing on species from Java and lowland dry species. However, we have some problem with the growth of the collection here, including pests and diseases, disease attacks on plants and environmental stress. I am trying to join the GCCD to learn more about Dipterocarp and seek information on how to solve the problems we are having. Does GCCD have the resources or forum that we can use as a guide in maintaining or propagating our Dipterocarp collection? That is the message.
Yeah, that's that's a big question. Yeah, Quatman. So you must be strong. So we all have to be strong in this situation. There are some resources. I know that BGCI does have some resources about kind of nursery management. I don't think it's specific down to pests and diseases. And I think there's relatively little known, but again, this would be one of the priorities that we could set. If it's something that is observed by a number of people, we could kind of start a resource center of compiling experiences and knowledge and background about these different pests and diseases that are arising in different situations. And I think that, this is certainly a big question as you build up these ex situ collections. How do you protect them? Because you are growing them together. And that's, the ecological theory tells us that one of the reasons we can keep such diversity in these forests is because they're rare everywhere. And so as you concentrate them into one place, you're going to be kind of encouraging those pests to find them and focus on them. So I think a first step will be to begin to compile the types of pests, the kinds of problems that people are having. I think there's general information out there about kind of maintaining populations and collections, but when you get down to the details of specific pests and diseases, it's more of a challenge. But starting with, kind of acknowledging that there is a challenge, and we'd love to keep engaged with you and kind of know, so we'll do some follow-up. We'll provide some mechanisms that people can follow up and contribute to these kinds of questions. So thank you very much for your question. Sorry, I don't really have any great answers. I don't know if Wen-Bin has anything to contribute or not.
We also found some, the seedlings in nursery known still some suffer from some of the insects, So we did not very good suggestions. So yeah, we just pass some of the pass some things can be controlled, but not very well. Yeah. So even we planting some tree, we can see just nearby the center, the city center, just the news, the surface. Also, many of the young trees, maybe some insects like the the young leaves of the the Dipterocarps. Yeah. So we talk to Yun Xue. Maybe he has some recommendation. We try to answer. Maybe give the reply for his question later. Yeah.
And I would say too, I mean, kind of in my evolution of what I think is important in my own priorities, I don't have a strong horticulture background, but I think it's so valuable to be able to grow these things, to be able to propagate them, to be able to protect them through, integrated pest management or whatever mechanism. So I really do strongly encourage people to do this, even though sometimes it may be difficult to find the training, and sometimes it doesn't have the same status as more fundamental research. I really want to kind of change that. I really want to bring horticulture, conservation horticulture forward and make it a more important field and more attractive. And because it is so critical, if we can't grow these things, if we can't propagate them, we're kind of stuck because the natural populations are so fragmented, so threatened oftentimes, they can't maintain themselves. So like I said, in the Anthropocene, we need to be a direct part of the solution. And I think horticulture is one field that really needs to be developed in the future.
Okay, thank you, Chuck and Wen-Bin. I think Dylan had his hand raised as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly, because I know we're running out of time, to say that I've just shared a link. There's a propagation protocol manual that's very basic and general that anyone can access for free on our website. But one of the things in the GCCs is that we too try to have a working group around developing propagation protocols and sharing that knowledge and horticultural conservation. And it sounds like that's probably a priority for the next 5 years with the GCCD. And one thing we're looking to do is develop central resources for that across tree species, because we have a lot of that information that's been project-based, but that's one of our jobs is to consolidate. That's one of the things about disseminating the information and making it more efficient. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dylan. Gritha has her hand raised as well.
Yeah, I think I just want to say the pest and diseases part in botanic gardens is not so strong in Southeast Asia. If you know, we have a plant biosecurity group which has just started. Maybe it's not going to give you direct answers for the problems, but we are trying to connect with organizations like CABI. CABI does a lot on pest and diseases, but CABI does this on agricultural cash crops. So we are trying to meet with CABI and see how they can also involve botanic gardens when it comes to pest and disease identification and how to combat. So if you're interested, please let us know. So that's what we wanted to say. So this plant biosecurity group we have formed specially for the botanical organization in Southeast Asia. So if you are interested to join, let me and David know. Thank you.
Thanks,
And I
Gritha.
did want to, Francis did have a question about contributing remotely. Yes, there will be parts of the symposium that will be available virtually, and just stay tuned to the website, and you can even contact us directly and let us know that you want to participate virtually, and we will make sure you're on the list. You know, of course, it's difficult to share all of it, but we'll definitely share some of the keynote talks and some other elements. And then going forward too, there will be a lot of exchange remotely and virtual meetings and things. So yeah, don't feel like you're missing out completely if you don't make it to the symposium. We'll try to involve you in ways that we can.
Right, great. Thanks for that reply. That's helpful. You know, for those of us who can't travel all that way.
Great.
Hey, thank you very much for that. I'd just like to say at this point, so we have hit the 5 p.m. mark. I understand if some of you have to go, but if you do, we will be posting later on the link to the evaluation form so that you can fill that up and also request a certificate of attendance for today. We will make time for those of you who can still stay to answer a couple more questions as they come along. And I think we have hands raised in the crowd. David Bursman, please feel free.
Yes, hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, sorry, I'm not getting, yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Wen-Bin, and everyone who put this together. I'm looking forward to meeting you in next month at the symposium. So actually, I'm going to pitch a thought which actually possibly becomes a question. So, I mean, we have for Dipterocarps, of course, the problem of recalcitrant seeds and therefore the lack of capacity to store genetic material. So that sort of takes us in the direction of the ex situ sort of arboretum or large scale collection. And I remember seeing the collection at TGB 20 years ago, and it's very impressive. And I wonder whether that has to be the way we move. I know there's another collection. There's one in Singapore. There's a large collection in Malaysia. You know, not in a botanic garden, but in a private property. And perhaps in order to capture that variation in that genetic variation that is going to get us through that biodiversity bottleneck that Chuck mentioned, that's a direction we're going to have to move in. So botanic gardens are great, but the collections are usually relatively quite small, and the example in Chishuapanara is an exception there. And they don't necessarily capture that full range of genetic diversity. So we are going to have to somewhat upscale our efforts and work with people who have the capacity to do that. And that's alongside, of course, the more traditional in situ conservation approaches. So that's really a bit of a background to what I'm going to be talking about next month at the symposium.
Thank you, David. Would anybody from the GCCD like to respond, give their thoughts as well?
Wen-Bin, I have something to say, but Wen-Bin, you unmuted if you want to go first.
Yeah, so because we're doing these things in China, so because in China we have not too many, species. So this is why we try, like of the extra conservation, we can call the genome conservation site. So this is what I did. I agree. So we not necessarily cover all the genetic diversity in the garden. Yeah. So actually, the current project we have a long collections for the Dipterocarps in the XTBG. So in previously in 1980s we did some, but we have the new policy start to 2021. So this is why we have the project 171. We want to be collect all the populations in China. So this is why we did currently because we cannot do in very well banking for the species so far. Just use the nitrogen conservation, extra conservation, so did not very well for all the species. So this is why we try to get the the seedlings and the living collections. Yeah. I just explain what did this country project.
Yeah. And I would follow up. I agree completely, David. I mean, I think it's got to go beyond botanic gardens. And, there's the ideas of like meta collections of having numerous sites that all coordinate collections and exchange material. And Because it would be, it's a real danger to have all of your eggs in one basket. For example, you have a big storm or a fire can completely destroy your collection if you don't have duplicates in other places. So propagating that material, exchanging, sharing it, but also including many other types of collections. Angela Hijas is here from Rimbu Dahan. There are other, like Henry Barlow and the Ginting Highlands. I was just up in Lojing Highlands near Cameron Highland, where they have a vegetable farm, but they also have got some forest behind their vegetable farms, and they really want to try to use it as a conservation site. So I think we really do have to create these kind of networks across different sectors, private, public, corporations. Sime Darby, Zaman Zulkifli has been with TRCRC, has been working with Sime Darby in trying to create a rainforest discovery center and a nursery there, where they're trying to bring endangered Dipterocarp species into the development. So all those kinds of things. We need to do all this. There's no one silver bullet. We need to take all of these strategies and try to what's feasible and who has the capacity for all those things, and just kind of measure. That's kind of what I meant by that ecosystem. That plant conservation ecosystem. If we can kind of identify where are the strengths, where the weaknesses, and where the ways in which we can communicate and collaborate.
Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, obviously with Dipterocarps, in situ is a key area, but one thing that's happening across some of the GCCs, and this is something that you can probably discuss at the symposium, is some of the GCCs they call them conservation groves. So again, it's outside of a garden. It's where you can get access to land, and again, and just again, it's but it's not necessarily set up as a public arboretum, etc. But it's another way to look at it. But it's not something to be cut down in the future. And that could be something in that region. I don't know if it's appropriate for the species. Again, I know that's Chuck Morton involved in some of that in the Midwest. There's talk of that in Europe for some of the things like white beams, again, which are slow growing and complicated. Just check. That's just a new concept, at least in my world as well.
Hey, thanks everybody for sharing your viewpoints on that, particular solutions that we can apply in maybe boxes that we have to tick in conservation of Dipterocarps. Are there any other questions? Anything the audience would like to ask, perhaps? Okay, so if you do have questions later on, please feel free to reach out to our speakers. They've provided their contact details, and we'll also follow this up in an email to you guys later on, the ones who attended. If I could ask Rita to please share her screen so we can finish up our tech talk. Okay, so we are very grateful to have had the opportunity to have our three speakers today be here and share about the GCCD, all of the work they have been doing and all the work that they will be doing together with everyone, especially starting with the symposium next month. So as a small token of our gratitude, we'd like to award these certificates virtually. We will also send you PDF copies afterwards. So next slide, please. Yeah. So we will the certificate of appreciation would be proudly presented to Dylan Fuller. Next slide, please. Wen-Bin Yu. And next slide, please. And Dr. Charles Cannon for sharing their experiences and expertise as guest speakers and presenters for the SEABG Technical Talk, Dipterocarps, and more, an intro to the Global Conservation Consortia, held online via Zoom on this day, 23rd of October, 2025, signed by Gritha Arumugam, CBG Network Manager. So thank you so much to all of our speakers for your time, your expertise. Thank you also to everyone in the audience for making time to join us today. Next slide, please. Yeah, so you may request a TechTalk certificate of attendance at the end of the evaluation form. This is the QR code and the link on the right side. Please stay rooted to the CBG Network Facebook page for more updates. We will let you know when the video has been edited and smoothed out. We will be sharing it on the BGCI webinars and Tech Talks page for everyone. And I think we are also providing a copy to the GCCD team so that they can upload it to their YouTube channel for everyone to watch. That's it for now. We don't currently have a Tech Talk scheduled for the last 2 months of the year. We may or may not have something early next year. So we will let everyone know when things have been planned out. But we, at some point next year, early next year, we will be having a Tech Talk about perhaps the Southeast Asia plant phenology network to share the results of their first year of data collection between different countries in Southeast Asia. So that'll be interesting. Whenever that Tech Talk happens, we hope to see you guys there. And thank you again for your time today, and we will see you around.